How does a dictatorship where women are suddenly stripped of all their rights come into being? In Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale and its subsequent TV adaptation, a totalitarian state with a rigid caste system rises from the ashes of the modern USA. In this new world, every aspect of a person's life is dictated by the state and subject to strict religious rules. How could a country so devoted to individual liberty take such a dark turn? It's simpler than you might think. It only takes 10 steps. Hi, it's Captain Spoiler here, overthinking pop culture, and we're about to dive deep into spoiler territory, so consider yourself warned. The origins of the Republic of Gilead are shrouded in mystery. Both the original 1985 novel and its sequel, The Testaments, as well as the hit TV series, offer only glimpses and fragments of the past. Let's try to piece together the puzzle and trace the path of the United States from a symbol of democracy to one of the most horrifying dystopian states in contemporary literature as envisioned by Margaret Atwood.
Blessed be the fruit. May the Lord open.
At the heart of Gilead, as with almost any violent historical catastrophe, lies a crisis. In this case, a profound demographic crisis. As a result of environmental pollution and radioactive contamination, the world is grappling with a massive infertility epidemic. Different countries have different ideas on how to deal with this situation. In the United States, a group of people begins to organize, seemingly with a clear understanding of what went wrong and how to fix it. What could be causing the declining birth rate? For some, the answer is clear: turning away from God. Divorce, promiscuity, contraception, homosexuality, women pursuing careers instead of dedicating themselves to motherhood. Right-wing religious activists preach that only a return to religion and traditional values can save the world. Serena Joy Waterford tours the country promoting her book, in which she argues that a woman's place is at home. She also plans to write other books with telling titles like Fertility as a National Resource and Reproduction as a Moral Imperative. Meanwhile, a group called the Sons of Jacob emerges as a secret think tank before rapidly transforming into a conspiratorial, militarized organization. Like Serena, they believe that cultural decadence is responsible for the fertility crisis. The Sons of Jacob see their mission as restoring order and purifying the country of sin. In a society grappling with a deep crisis, their words offer hope to many, gradually amassing a following. Even before the Sons of Jacob seize full power and create Gilead, they gain significant influence within the U.S. government, and their views gain traction, leading to changes in the law. Since population growth has stalled, it must be stimulated, even by force. The government first targets those who don't want children. Vasectomies are legally banned for men, and access to hormonal contraception for women is doubly restricted, now requiring not only a doctor's prescription, but also written consent from the husband. Subsequent reforms planned by the Sons of Jacob severely limit access to prenatal testing, which might seem illogical in a world where many children are born sick and deformed due to pollution, but the focus is on the number of births. The state cannot leave women any room for doubt or access to unfavorable medical information, as it could result in sinful temptations. Every pregnancy is a gift, and if it turns out to be a gift of death or disease, it's clearly God's will. Once the Sons of Jacob gain full power, they impose a complete ban on abortion and contraception. It also becomes clear that Gilead and its laws have retroactive effect. Doctors who performed abortions before the change in power and the introduction of the draconian law are publicly hanged as an example. The culmination of efforts to increase fertility is the establishment of the Handmaids, slave surrogates who bear children for the Gilead elite. Members of the Sons of Jacob, including Waterford and Putnam, infiltrate the U.S. government and administration. To seize power, they orchestrate 3 armed attacks on the White House, Congress, and the Supreme Court. They officially blame Islamic fanatics for the attacks, allowing the military to take control under the pretext of protecting the country. Martial law is imposed, and the Constitution is temporarily suspended to facilitate the making of difficult but necessary decisions. The president, most of the government, and members of Congress are killed in the attacks, and those officials who survive flee to Alaska. A significant number of civilians also die, and the total number of victims exceeds the toll of the 9/11. Immediately after the attacks, the Sons of Jacob take control of national security, giving them real and almost unlimited power. One of their first steps is to expel all women from government administration with the idea of preventing them from forgetting their true purpose, which apparently is not participation in ruling the country. After the armed coup, the sons of Jacob act swiftly to consolidate their power. Under the pretext of national security, freedom of speech and assembly are abolished, and roadblocks and identity checks appear. The terrified public initially doesn't protest vigorously, especially as the government deceives them with promises of new elections, with the caveat that preparations might take a while. Instead, the Republic of Gilead is soon established in the territories conquered by the religious militants, with supreme power falling into the hands of the sons of Jacob's inner circle, known as the Committee. Organization members are appointed commanders and become the new elite, the richest and most powerful in society. A new caste-based, extremely patriarchal and religious society is rapidly built, with caste divisions emphasized by clothing colors to distance the different groups. All dangerous and subversive elements are eliminated or deported to forced labor camps. The sons of Jacob know that subordinates are best controlled through coercion, violence, and blackmail. That's why the ants, the class tasked with guarding the new morality, are recruited through internment, breaking of body and spirit, and ultimately a deadly initiation ritual. To survive, one must submit, and in submitting, they become so implicated in the crime that upholding the system becomes their interest. Women become second-class citizens, subject to the authority of a man, husband, father, or brother. Their professional work is outlawed, and their independent bank accounts are frozen. All previously employed women are fired and sent home. Attempts to protest are brutally suppressed and result in many deaths. Soon, women's education is drastically limited. It is now reduced solely to learning how to run a household and be an obedient wife. Any other knowledge or skills, including reading, are not considered important for women. On the contrary, they are seen as a threat, both to the women themselves, who might be corrupted by revolutionary ideas, and to Gilead, which seeks to prevent women from communicating, organizing resistance, or even thinking about being treated unfairly. Women are forbidden from interacting with the written word, and all public signs are replaced with images to prevent them from polluting their maternal essence with any intellectual work, even reading a shopping list. The only women allowed to read and write are the aunts, the group responsible for controlling the handmaids, only because of their administrative duties. Media outlets are shut down, censored, or taken over by the government. The topic of sexuality completely disappears from public discourse, and censorship expands to other areas of life. Soon, owning books other than religious ones or approved by the authorities becomes forbidden, at least for men, because, as we know, any contact with books, even religious ones, is strictly punished for women. The same goes for access to media. Cigarettes, alcohol, makeup, pre-revolution clothing, and countless other once common items are now only available on the black market, accessible only to the elite. Gilead wants complete control over what its citizens do and how they do it. The Republic of Gilead is founded on Christianity and organized according to strict religious laws derived from the Bible, especially the Old Testament. However, the Bible is treated very selectively and instrumentally, with the sons of Jacob choosing passages to solidify their power or justify new prohibitions and laws while largely ignoring the rest. In practice, they create and impose a new form of religion on society, based primarily on oppression. Participation in religious gatherings and ceremonies becomes mandatory, and all other religions are outlawed. Their members are murdered, exiled, or faced with a choice: renounce their faith or die. Biblical passages are used to justify a system of harsh punishments. It's hard to find a sin in Gilead that isn't punishable by death or mutilation. The existence of handmaids is justified by a quote from Genesis, from the scene where Rachel, Jacob's wife, unable to give him a son, suggests he father a child with her maidservant.
And Rachel said, "Behold my maid Bilhah. Go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may have children by her."
Social life is organized around a series of religious rituals, from the wedding night, during which the couple is separated by a sheet with a hole, to the monthly ceremony of raping a handmaid, to public and brutal executions elevated to the status of religious rites, perversely called salvaging. Gilead accepts only one form of family life: husband, wife, and children, not necessarily biological. Extramarital and same-sex relationships are outlawed, as are remarriages contracted before the Revolution. All children raised in such sinful families, as well as children of single mothers, are forcibly taken from their parents and given to infertile couples among the Gilead elite. From that moment on, a state permit is required to marry, and arranged marriages are most common, with wives assigned to sons of Jacob fighters and deserving officials as a reward, chosen from the daughters of pious families. Those who lived in sinful relationships before the Revolution face a bleak future. Gay men, as traitors to their gender, are sentenced to death. Women are divided into those of proven fertility, who are forcibly conscripted into the ranks of handmaids, and those who are reproductively useless, henceforth called unwomen. Gilead society is clearly divided into castes, but most of these divisions affect women. Wives and daughters of the commanders hold the highest positions. Although, like other women, they have no rights or voice in their own affairs and are completely dependent on their husbands and fathers, they at least lead comfortable lives, centered around the home, where even reading a book is forbidden, but comfortable nonetheless. Significantly lower in status, but still with some respect, are Econo wives, married women of the middle and lower classes. We don't know much about their lives, as both the book and the series devote very little space to them. What we do know is that unlike commanders' wives, they are not allowed to have servants or handmaids. Besides wives, daughters, and widows, all other unworthy women fill slave and servant roles. New supplies of female slaves are brought in from territories conquered by Gilead. The greatest value of a woman in the Republic of Gilead is fertility, which combined with social status creates further classes. Women who cannot have children and are not wives or daughters from legitimate families are called unwomen and reduced to the role of slaves. Some unwomen are incorporated into the class of Marthas, servants, cleaners, and housekeepers, a fate for the obedient and submissive. Defiant rebels have the choice of being sent to a secret brothel for the highest-ranking commanders, or to deadly labor camps working to clean up the effects of pollution. Fertile women recruited from among the sinners of the pre-revolution era end up in the slave-like order of handmaids, whose sacred duty is to bear children for the glory of Gilead. A handmaid serves a high-ranking commander whose wife has not borne children. The official responsibility for infertility always lies with women, although it's an open secret that the problem affects both men and women.
And you, Handmaid 8967, your existence is an abomination.
Women who are not wives are stripped of their own identity. All maids and servants operate under the name Martha, from the biblical Martha who, instead of being fanciful like her sister Mary, obediently served Jesus. And handmaids are named after their current commander, like Offred, meaning belonging to Fred, or Ovglen, property of Glen. Asserting one's individuality, using old names, or talking about life before the revolution is strictly forbidden. A state that interferes so deeply in the lives of its citizens must be ruled by fear and maintained by violence. Heavily armed soldiers stand on every street, observing every move of passers-by. Citizens are encouraged by fear and indoctrination to inform on each other. A special secret police force is established to recruit spies. Control hits hardest at the bottom of the social ladder, but the elite don't escape it either. Even Gilead's designers eventually realize they are not safe and must play by the same rules they tried to impose on others. Anyone can be punished with mutilation, execution, hanging, or exile to the labor camps in the colonies. Almost daily, someone disappears without a trace or is publicly condemned. Only the precious handmaids have immunity from death. They are not killed for their transgressions, but re-educated and broken through mutilation, torture, solitary confinement, and a whole range of elaborate methods. As long as their uterus and ovaries are not damaged, anything can be done to handmaids. From our comfortable perspective as citizens of a supposedly civilized and free world, Gilead might seem like something abstract. But when you break down this fiction into its parts, it becomes clear that it's full of elements that have already happened somewhere in the world, or are happening before our very eyes. Atwood took great care to ensure that neither the book nor the series contained elements without some precedent in world history. This fiction is also full of things that are just a few steps away from the views and trends that are clearly breaking into public debate. Hells on earth don't arise from nothing, and places like Gilead don't spring up overnight. And this is perhaps the most important thing that should remain with us after watching or reading The Handmaid's Tale, the conviction that freedom and security are not forever guaranteed. It is therefore worth looking closely at the world around us and defending the things that are important to us, while we are still free to speak about them.
I am grateful to be speaking to you today. But mine is just one voice. Countless others will remain unheard